Well, hey, what's up, everyone? Chris here from Meadows Church. Thanks for taking time to tune in. This is a Word for Wednesday, and it's certainly a very special Wednesday indeed, as we find ourselves right in the middle of Holy Week. And Holy Week is the week that leads right up to Easter, to Resurrection Sunday, and it's the very end of this season of Lent that we've been in together, which is the last 40 days and 6 Sundays together. And in this season of Lent, which we've talked about a few times, it's a time when we really focus on Jesus. We're invited into the story of Jesus that leads its way all the way up to this week, all the way up to the events that happened this week, which ultimately lead to what happened on Friday when he's crucified and on Sunday when he's raised from the dead. And so perhaps over this last several weeks, you've been fasting and praying. You've given something up. I know I've done that myself, and I'm certainly excited for Easter to come, to have that thing back into my life, whatever that might be for you. But I think it's important, it's significant for us to look at this week and all that it means, all that it represents. And though we won't have time today to talk about every single day of the week and all the events that unfold, certainly we don't have time for that, but there are some significant things that happen that lead up to the crucifixion, that lead up to the resurrection. And so this Sunday, we celebrate Easter Sunday, but how do we get there? You see, a week prior, Palm Sunday, which you may have heard, that's the Sunday before Easter, Palm Sunday, what we had just a few days ago, there's these two big entrances into Jerusalem. There's these two big parades, if you will. On one side of town, there's this big parade, a military parade, and Pilate, the Roman governor, is riding into town with great fanfare. He's got a big war horse that he's riding in on, military soldiers, weapons, all this kind of stuff, this display of might, this display of power. You see, one thing we learned from the very foundation of the world is that kingdom after kingdom after kingdom falls into this same category, where we see it's a kingdom of power enforced by violence. And Pilate represents Rome, who stands in the same place as all these other kingdoms. And in fact, it's so ingrained in the world, even today, it's so ingrained in us, that sometimes we forget that there's another way. We think that it's the only way. This is just the way it is. People have power and they run things by violence, and kingdom fights kingdom and person fights person, and it's just the way it has to be. And yet Jesus challenges that very idea. You see, Jesus comes as a king, establishing a new kingdom, establishing this kingdom of God that he talks about so much. Everything really Jesus does is an enactment or an announcement of this very kingdom. And so while Pilate is coming in on the other side of town with this great parade of military might, displaying his kingdom, Jesus, very humbly on the other side of town, rolls in on a very small donkey. It's quite the opposite of a war horse. And very much for good reason. Jesus doesn't come as a kingdom of power enforced by violence. Jesus' kingdom is a different way, another way. It's not just the same type of kingdom, but now we're saying Jesus is the good guy. No, it doesn't work that way. See, Jesus comes as a kingdom of peace, as a kingdom of love, even for enemies. And Jesus would choose instead to kill his enemies. He would rather die for them and forgive them, which we see that transpire as he's being crucified on Friday. He says, Father, forgive them. They know not what they're doing. They don't know. They can't even see it. They can't perceive it. Like I said before, they're so ingrained that this is the way the world works. Power enforced by violence. And so they can't even recognize Jesus and his kingdom and the new way that he's bringing into the world. And so Jesus comes into town with this kingdom of peace. And sometimes we're fooled, we're tricked into the idea that we can achieve peace through whatever means necessary, right? We can achieve peace by doing it the way that we want to do it. And however we get there, it doesn't really matter. We'll sweep that under the rug as long as we achieve peace in the end. And that's been the lie that's been bought over and over and over throughout the course of this world. A country says we're going to achieve peace, and they go about it by declaring war. War will never lead to peace. War just leads to more war. War leads to more hate. War continues the cycle of violence that's been going on forever and ever since the beginning of the world. And it's not until we get to Jesus and we see this new kingdom, this new way that says we're not going to follow the old pattern. We're not going to follow the old methodology. We're not going to follow the old systems. Now we're a kingdom of peace, because peace is not something you can achieve any way that you want. Peace is actually the way, which is what the very first Christians called themselves, the ones that followed Jesus. Before they were called Christians, which is what we're used to nowadays, it was called the way. The way. And it's the way of peace, the way of love, the way of forgiveness, the way of generosity. This way was so radical that it changed the world forever. And as we know Jesus was resurrected, we'll celebrate that this Easter Sunday. The church has been gathering together to remember that all around the world every Sunday since then. And we still meet today. This way, it's a walk. It's a journey that we take with Jesus. We walk in peace. We forgive people when they don't deserve it. We love those who certainly haven't earned it. We're generous when it doesn't make sense. You see, this is the type of kingdom that Jesus preaches about. This is the type of kingdom that Jesus talks about. Jesus brings this new kingdom, and it's radically opposed to the other kingdoms that would have been. And so those that most benefit from the way that things were, the kingdoms that were already in place, the very rich, the very religious, the very powerful, those systems come together to make sure that they put an end to Jesus. Because the kingdom he's bringing, the kingdom that he's talking about, brings hope to the hopeless. It talks about providing and caring for the poor. It says the first is last and the last is first. Well, the first in the new kingdoms, the first in the current kingdoms didn't like that. And so they wanted to put an end to Jesus. And so as he comes into town on this donkey, symbolizing so much more than just a donkey, but symbolizing, I'm not a kingdom of war, I'm a kingdom of peace, and peace is the way. But it challenges the very systems, those that profited. He would end up going throughout the week and causing so many problems for so many people because he challenged the very systems that they benefited from. The temple system, where he flipped the tables over and drove out the money changers because they were profiting from charging people to get sacrifices so that they could worship. And he quotes Isaiah to say, this is supposed to be my house, a house of prayer for all people. But you have turned it into a den of robbers. You see, he goes throughout the week challenging the systems that are in place, calling out those that are leading through hypocrisy. And because of all that he says, it ultimately leads up to what happens on that Thursday evening when he's betrayed and arrested, just after he has the Last Supper with his disciples. He goes into the garden and prays, and these soldiers come and take him away. And they lead him towards what ultimately would be his death. And so many things transpire that get us to that place, but what we remember on Good Friday is Jesus gave his life for us. He died a death that he did not deserve. And he condemned and judged the systems of the world that would lead him to that place. And it offers us hope. It offers us hope in that we can follow after that same thing. Because Jesus dying on the cross is not just something that he does for us, that we look at and applaud and say, thank you, Jesus, although we do that. Jesus also gets down from the cross, he gets off when he dies. He resurrects into the new world, a new creation that's for us, and he then invites us to take up our cross and to follow after him. We're going to now deny ourselves. We're now going to love our enemies the way that he did. We're now going to forgive people that didn't earn it the way that he did. And it's a new radical kingdom that we get to be a part of. So I pray Easter would mean something special to you this year. I pray that this Holy Week would mean something special to you as you understand this new and radical way that we get to be human, this new radical way that we get to be a follower of Jesus. And I pray you would make that decision to give your life to Jesus, to follow after him and his pattern, what he teaches us. And what a wonderful thing that is. I would love to personally invite you this Easter Sunday. It's April 4th. We're going to be gathering as a church at Butterfield Park, just around town here outside, 6:30 a.m. It is the sunrise service, and we'll celebrate all that God does. And we celebrate specifically the resurrection of Jesus. I pray you would join us. As always, if you have any questions, you can hit up our website, meadowschurch.com. You can check us out on Facebook or Instagram. I would certainly love to talk with you, connect with you. We have 4 small groups meeting throughout the area where I know you could get plugged in and connected, meet some great people as you really find out who we are as a church. But I'll tell you one thing, we as a church are following Jesus together. That's our vision statement, that's who we are, and that's what we want to be. So as we follow him, we represent everything that he represents to this world. Love, peace, forgiveness, generosity, and certainly joy. I pray you would find that joy today. Hope to hear from you soon. God bless, and I look forward to seeing you this Easter Sunday, 6:30 a.m. at Butterfield Park. God bless.